Well, good afternoon, NAC, and welcome to the 7th in our series of NAC Check-In Chats. As I let a few more folks in here, I do have a few quick announcements to make. First of all, there will be 2 more NAC Check-In Chats coming up in June. So information on that and the free registration to our members, that'll all be coming out real soon. I'd like to remind everyone to stay muted to help us have a little semblance of order, but by all means, we do want you to feel free to ask as many questions as you want and just use the chat function, and we'll make sure that those questions get to our panel today. A few more announcements and particularly important today to remind you that CinemaCon registration is open. And also want to remind you from the NAC point of view, we'll have a slate of events that are being planned right now. They may be truncated from years past, but we're going to have some really exciting things coming up, including just working with Larry Eder on a Thursday morning seminar. That looks like it's going to be real fun and exciting with a great panel, and he's going to call that To Infinity and Then Where. That's the working title. So something to look forward to as we get closer to that date. And then also a reminder to save the date for our own event, the NAC 2021 Concession and Hospitality Expo. We're going to have some general education sessions. We're going to have a one-day trade show this year. We're going to feature an awards luncheon this year. So we're going to do our annual awards all at our luncheon this year. We're going to bring back the very popular venue breakout sessions. We'll have a few evening social events. And then also, and this is very important, there's going to be a 4-day CCM class in the days leading up to Expo. So there's information, there'll be information coming out on that very shortly. We're just days away from opening up registration on all of this stuff. So please stay tuned because this is an exciting time, and you're going to find that out today as well. But this is an exciting time for everyone here today and an exciting time for NAC. So just to remind you about today's program, we've got the CinemaCon team here today. We've got Mitch Newhauser, Matt Pollock, and Matt Shapiro. They're going to tell you all about what's been going on with CinemaCon, what to expect in the next few months, and we're going to find out a little bit about each of them along the way. So we are excited about that. But before we do that, we want to thank our featured sponsor, Coca-Cola. We've got Mason Spellman is with us here today. And Mason, I'm going to invite you to take over the screen and tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Coca-Cola.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. As Chris mentioned, can everyone hear me? Awesome. Perfect. All right. Yes. As everyone mentioned, my name is Mason Spellman. I work for Coca-Cola and have had the pleasure of working at Coca-Cola for 16 years now. I've spent about the past 5 to 6 years now working with our cinema customers in what we call the Cinema Channel. And the Cinema Channel is really, it's a resource that allows us to support all of our cinema customers across the United States and even across the globe with everything from insights to marketing support to programming, product, whatever we need to do to support our cinema customers. That is really truly the drive of this channel and my role in leading this channel. So I just wanted to call a couple of things out for those of you that don't know anything about us. So we are really thrilled that we can welcome guests back to our theaters across the United States. The Coca-Cola Company has about a 75% share of the Cinema Channel in the United States. And really, we feel like this shows our dedication and our commitment to this industry, not just from, a product placement standpoint in what you see in the movies, but everything to our cinema customers in the theaters, outside of the theaters, our industry partners like NATO and CinemaCon, NAC, the Show East team. So we really want to make sure that our customers feel like have a strong presence in the industry. We as a company believe in the industry. We believe in the movie-going experience, and we always have and will always will continue to support this very important industry and this very important and wonderful experience that we all get to have as consumers as well. So we're excited to welcome guests back to the movies, and we just want to continue showcasing something that we feel is very important, and that is our continued celebration and support of the industry. So what you're going to see from us over the next 6 to 12 months is really honoring our past. So Coca-Cola was the first product featured in a movie in the 20s in King Kong. We started partnerships with movies and the movie going and movie industry in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We actually just celebrated in 2020 our 100-year partnerships with AMC theaters. So you can see that it's a very long-standing commitment to the industry, and we want to continue to celebrate that, as well as support our customers. We know that all of our customers have had a trying year this past year, and so we've really worked to have resources, put support measures in place to help support our customers so that we can continue doing business together in the future. And what we want to continue to showcase as we plan for our future is the strength of our commitment to this industry. We believe in it. We believe it's important. It's important to our consumers and it's important to us. So we want to continue working with NATO to celebrate that and to be a resource for support, as well as celebrating the diversity and inclusion that's happening in the industry. We want to celebrate women up and coming in the industry and also the diversification of this industry. So if you ever have any questions on how we can help you or what we can do, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always willing and able to help. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris, or perhaps our very good friends who we love and adore, Mitch, Matt, and Matt.
Well, thank you, Mason, and thanks once again for continuing to be a great supporter of NAC and the entire industry. And very, very much appreciate having you join us today, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Chris.
With that, I'm going to turn the program over to Mitch Newhauser, Matt Pollock, and Matt Shapiro. Again, I'll remind everyone, please use the chat function, ask questions. Several of you already done that, so we appreciate that. Mitch, I guess we'll throw it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mason. And a big hello to everyone out there, my associates, Matt Pollock and Matt Shapiro. So we're going to each take a section of CinemaCon, talk about it today. We'll talk about the past, the present, the future. And one of the things Chris indicated was some people may not even know what the true backstory of CinemaCon is. So I'll take a couple of minutes to give a little history on that. So as many of you know, prior to 2011, there was a great show in the industry called Show West, which got its beginnings way back 35 years before 2011 at the Hotel del Coronado in San Diego. And as they say, from small acorns, big trees grow. That's exactly what happened to Show West. It outgrew the Hotel del Coronado. It ended up moving to Las Vegas. It achieved great success, ended up taking over both Bally's and Paris. And in 2000, NATO of California, Nevada, which owned Show West, sold it to what then was called VNU. The sale was spearheaded by our good friend Bob Sunshine and his executives at VNU. And from 2001 through 2010, Show West was owned and operated by Bob. I worked for Bob, so I worked for the show for 9 years. And when the agreement was signed back in 2000, there was a 10-year non-compete between NATO and NATO of California, Nevada, and VNU, Sunshine's company. So year one passed and Show East continued, and there was a lot of change in the industry. I will say this: Show West was sold to VNU at the peak, and then there was consolidation in the industry and trade show companies. So it started going a little downhill, if you will. And then what happened at around 2007, as they were approaching 3 years till the end of the non-compete, there were discussions between, actually it wasn't VNU then, I think it changed hands to Nielsen, between Nielsen and NATO. And basically it was to extend that non-compete. Well, the negotiations didn't go really smoothly. And the longer it went on, NATO thought to itself, you know something? We used to run a convention by ourselves. We could do it again. So they made the decision not to renew the non-compete, and they did their own due diligence leading up to the end of the non-compete. And they decided to move forward starting in 2011 at Caesar's Palace with a new show, and they called it CinemaCon. And what happened is they approached me to come on board and oversee this transition. And after working for Bob Sunshine for around 38 years, 1981 to 2009, 38 years, great relationship. I cut the cord, to use a current term, and I went to work for NATO. So I spent from September 14th until March of 2011 putting together the show. Matt Shapiro came on board as one of our trusted executives, and we hit the road running in 2011. And we did a pretty good job. And we started slow, we started steady, and we started with a little skepticism on part of the Hollywood studios. Not all of them participated in year one. They wanted to see if we could do it, if we could live up to the expectations of the industry, and we did. And in year two, we got all the studios and we continued to grow. There was a change in executives in between 2011 and 12, and Matt Pollock came on board, also a former Bob Sunshine employee. Bob, goes without saying, was an incredible mentor to both Matt Pollock and myself. There's no one more dedicated, passionate, creative, innovative when it comes to our industry, as evidenced by the success of his current three shows, Show West, Cine Europe, and Cine Asia. So from 2011 to 2019, we continued to grow. The trade show always sold out. We grew from a global standpoint. Our registrations grew. And I will say this, when you want to talk about support of the industry, from day one, the first sponsor who came on board because they believed in the show and they believe and continue to believe in our great industry was Coca-Cola. And they are our official presenting sponsor. So hats off to Mason and all of Mason's predecessors who believed in the show and helped pull this off, especially Stephanie Miller and KC, Krista Schulte, who was there, who left, they pulled her back in. So Coke is the best. So we really appreciate the support of Coca-Cola. And basically our show is all about the industry. It's about celebrating the movie-going experience from a studio, equipment, concession, seminar, awards standpoint. And we were hitting our stride, and 2019 was a record year. And then we all hit the speed bump known as COVID-19. We held out as long as we possibly could, up until March 11th, when the proverbial shit hit the fan with COVID being discovered here in the United States and the first death and international travel and the kibosh was put on this and basketball came to a halt. So we held out as late as we could. We believed in putting on a show and we canceled it the night of March 11th. And just like everybody else on this call and billions of people around the world, our worlds came to an end, waiting and waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel. But when we canceled the show, we said to ourselves, we have 13 months until the next show. The next show wouldn't be until the end of April 2020. So we have an extra month. And at that time, remember, everyone thought we were going to be back up and running by the summer of 2020. Well, that didn't happen. And then it was supposed to be the fall, and that didn't happen. So we had the foresight back in July we knew that we weren't going to be able to pull off a show in April. So we got dates as best we could for August of 2021. We would have liked it September, but that's a busy month in Las Vegas no matter what, so we couldn't do it. So we held steady and we officially announced our shift of dates in December. And we had a whole game plan with Matt Shapiro to open the trade show and our studio visits to really start right after the new year. And then we hit the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, terrible surge. Then we hit the terrible stuff that was political stuff, mayhem that was going on in Washington. So we held back from moving forward. Well, once the new administration took hold and there was an actual rollout and game plan for the vaccine and things were getting steadier and the nation was on more stable footing, we came up with our plan of when to go live with the show. And Matt Shapiro started his behind the scene work on the trade show. I'll let him get to that in a minute. The one thing I will say is when we canceled the show, we gave people who had registered or taken trade show booths the ability to get a refund or to transfer their money to 2021. The support from the trade show people was incredible. Over $1.2 million in revenue that had already been paid for 2020, we were told to carry it through to 2021. That showed the belief in the equipment and concession sector, in the future of the industry, in their belief in exhibition, and that was just a great show of support. So we're up and running. We knew behind the scenes we needed for the COVID pandemic to taper down, for the numbers, the hospitalizations, the unfortunate death rate to really be on the decline, for us to really make a move and feel comfortable moving forward. We did that. We've gotten certain support that the NATO Executive Board wanted to hear about. And last Thursday, Matt Pollock and I were in Los Angeles. We made an official presentation to the NATO Executive Board, who voted unanimously to move forward with CinemaCon in 2021. And we're really excited about that. Are we 2 months behind the 8 ball? You betcha. But we've got less than 3 months to put the pedal to the metal, to give up our weekends, to give up our families, to give up our lives, because holding a show in August is not about the bottom line. Actually, just so you know, the projected forecast, the bottom line for our August show comes in at a loss. For us, it's the statement. It's showing the industry what history has shown time and again, the resiliency of the motion picture theater industry, from television to video cassettes, to DVDs, to cable, to streaming, you name it, we've knocked them down. And our industry will be strong and it will live long and prosper, to take a quote from Mr. Spock. So we're really excited about that. And I want to point something out, that when we get concession people and equipment people to support the trade show, and we know that the money that you pay for a trade show booth is a fixed amount, we know that it goes way beyond that. There's the shipping, there's the labor to set up your booth, there's the labor to man it. We know that probably the least of the costs is the booth rental costs. But whether it's a trade show booth cost or a registration or a sponsorship, that money, when there's a profit thrown off from CinemaCon, that money goes to NATO, and it goes to support and help run NATO. And it allows them to build up their reserve funds, so that when March 11th happened last year, and there was no income from CinemaCon, and there was no income from dues, they were able to operate and spend millions of dollars on government campaigns, industry campaigns such as Cinema Safe, they were able to spend that money because of you, the equipment and concession companies who supported our trade show and allowed NATO to build up their reserve funds. Because if they weren't able to do that, and there were no NATO who was able to fight to get exhibition in the initial PPP programs and then the SVOG programs, which basically are according exhibition millions, if not billions of dollars as a conglomerate, as a group to stay in business. Well, if there's no exhibition industry, we're not on this Zoom call today. And we're out at Cinnabon, with Saul Goodman, putting the icing on the Cinnabons. So it's a full circle. There's NATO, there's CinemaCon, there's Concession, there's Coke, there's Matt, there's Chris. So we should all be proud that we're on this call today and that there is a CinemaCon in August and that we're all going to rally together to celebrate the movie-going experience. That's my take on where we were, how we came to be, and where we're going. The last thing I will say before I turn it over to Matt Pollock to talk about the actual show is that today, John Fithian sent out, and John never does this. John is the president and CEO of NATO. There's always been a separation of church and state between CinemaCon and NATO, because we'll deal with the studios and we're Switzerland and we're only favorable, but NATO, no secret, has issues back and forth with distribution. Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad. Then they're good, then they're bad. So we've always kept John and NATO out of the CinemaCon thing. However, we thought with the studio support that exhibition now owes it to the studios and to the trade show companies to make sure that they're there, walking the trade show floor and filling the seats in the Coliseum. So John sent out a personal memo today to the NATO membership saying, gung ho, we're putting on a show. These are the decisions that were made and why, and we need your support, and put that SVOG money to good use. So we're off and running. We're excited. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt Pollock to take the baton. But before I do that, Chris, are there any questions, comments? Anyone cursing me out? Just put it on the line.
I don't see any questions right now, and nobody's certainly cursing you out. I think I'm feeling a lot of smiles. So that's a feel. That's not a technology thing. But I did have one quick question for you. That's my question. And we are so excited about the 2021 CinemaCon. Do you have dates for 2022?
Yes, we do. And it'll be 8 months later. That'll be the 26th, 25th to 28th.
Okay. Great.
And the 28th is going to be when the NFL draft is in Las Vegas.
Well, that'll be a fun.
There's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of stuff going on. Mason just fell off her chair when she found that one.
So I get to go over and boo the Vikings draft choice then. So that's great.
There you go.
Who knows? The Giants may have to pick number 1.
All right. With that, they're gonna turn Mitch's mic off, and there is one person cursing, Mitch, and that's my wife, who probably heard you just said I have to ignore the family for 3 months. But on that, so I'll kind of segue from what Mitch led into on one main point that many of you were probably wondering a little bit, although you had a lot of communication with Matt Shapiro, and that is we have been quiet, and that was on purpose. Mitch gave the reasons, but there were various reasons over the last few months where we've been working behind the scenes, obviously, towards putting on the show. So we're not completely behind the 8 ball, but yes, we're a little behind in terms of now staring at the calendar. But the timing of Chris reaching out to us and asking us to kind of talk about CinemaCon on this couldn't have been more perfect, because I almost feel like our team is now on this press tour, and this is the launch of it. This is literally, we went live with a few new things on the website this morning for the first time. And then there's more coming on, hopefully, knock on wood, tomorrow, if not next week, that are based on the typical things that are out of our control, but are all good news in terms of the studio support. And we're just in the midst now of like literally the sign-offs from 1 or 2 studios, just officially, even though they've verbally given us the okay to include them on the website and just be fully out there. So with that, I'll also give a disclaimer, because I'll jump right into that just to give you an idea of where our team has come in terms of our conversations with studios. I'll say that some of what I'm telling you guys now is being heard for the first time. And so sort of keep it amongst ourselves, although I'm hoping, knock on wood, that all this will be public as soon as tomorrow, if not next week, but knock on wood, tomorrow. And that is, so we went out a couple of months ago in March, actually, our first studio visit, and it was more of just a visit to check in with the studios. We weren't expecting any commitments, obviously, especially in March, where everyone was in a really tough go of it just from a vaccination standpoint. Most of the people we met with weren't fully vaccinated, so their heads were in a certain space. All the studios weren't back on their lots. Many still aren't, but at least now they have more finite or more exact plans on when they are getting back. And that wasn't the case in March. There was not even a Godzilla success in the box office at that point when we met. So we knew going into those initial meetings on just getting early feedback, although I will say with one caveat, we had already had discussions about the August dates way back when, and they thought it was a good idea, that when we went in March, we wanted to feel them out on what they thought about putting on a show in August. We knew we'd get mixed reactions in terms of the caution that not just they were feeling, but more so their corporate entities. And we came away happier and with better news than we expected. We actually left with 3 pretty firm commitments way back in March on the show, with the few of the others not saying no, but just saying it was way too early for them to commit. And that was fine. We knew we'd be back in May. There were a couple of reasons for that. One of which was it was just important if we were going to go on with the show. This 3-month timeline, we had to kick it off. But then B, there were contract decisions with Caesars that loomed over us that just made it that the end of May was a good guide for us to have that week of meetings last week, present to our executive board, and officially know that we had the green light to start marketing the event fully. So we did that. And with that, the results couldn't have been better. It exceeded what Mitch and I even hoped for in terms of the full commitments and the stress that goes with that, being that there's still obviously not a full rebound yet, although hoped and expected. So this is the part where I'm going to start telling you a little bit about our schedule. Know that it's tentative. Know that some of it, as I said, I'm giving you a little inside baseball here in that some of it's not 100% for official knowledge, but we're confident enough that I can share it. And so we're doing that here. And maybe it's right off the bat. And this is from a studio standpoint, and then I'll talk about a few other things, but just from a studio standpoint, Monday night, and this is probably the biggest part of it that I'm cautiously telling you, but we're very confident in, is that it looks like Sony Pictures is back in the fold in the Coliseum after taking, they were not in 19 and 20 after some other really successful years. So they're going to kick off the show on Monday night. So we're really excited about that. And obviously they have a ton of product, and it means a lot for them and for their executives to get on. They've been really good in the press in terms of pro theatrical. So we're excited, and the timing's just perfect on that. Tuesday morning State of the Industry is probably going to be more important in terms of the press paying attention to it than ever before, for obvious reasons. And John Fithian and Charles Rivkin will be making their presentations. We're working closely with a studio that hasn't been at the show before and has a lot of product and a lot to show, that will likely be in that spot. And if they can't, for whatever reason, it's one of the things we're hanging on. We have some other really big ideas that'll fill right in. So we're excited to announce that very soon. But there'll be a studio program following the State of the Industry on Tuesday morning, as there is. We'll kick off the trade show as we always do on Tuesday, which Matt Shapiro will get into a little more. And then we're happy to announce that Warner Brothers will be back on Tuesday afternoon with both a presentation and a screening. So that's firm, and we know a lot of our attendees enjoy the screenings in addition, so that should work out well. Rolling into Wednesday morning, where we got official news before, actually most of the studios before our last trip, that Disney is in both for a presentation and for a screening. And then Wednesday afternoon, Universal is likely joining forces with Focus, and they're going to do a joint presentation and also a screening on Wednesday. So a very full day that day as well. And then leading right into Thursday, where Paramount and the return of Chris Aronson on the CinemaCon stage will take place on Thursday morning. And that will be followed in the afternoon or later on by Lionsgate, who will be doing a presentation and screening. So obviously a lot going on there, and a lot to chew, and we'll have a lot more details on the exact screenings and the exact studio timing and all that, but just exciting stuff that we wanted to announce. Before I turn it over to Matt to focus on the trade show and some other things, I just wanted to go over some little general things Mitch touched on a little bit in terms of our outreach to our attendees and our members, I should say, has been fantastic. We obviously have the luxury that we work for NATO and have we can pick up the phone at any time and have close communication with our biggest members. And I can tell you now that all of our top members are planning on bringing full teams. And even in the cases where they may scale back a little bit in terms of their full hundreds, in some cases, of executives, they're all bringing their decision makers. We think, in fact, that domestically our attendance will be beyond strong and comparable to previous years. Obviously a drop off for financial reasons, but maybe even not as much as we would have thought a few months ago because of some of the government funding that has infused billions of dollars into our members' pockets, knock on wood, hopefully very soon. Already approved, but hopefully it hits their bank account soon. But even part of that, the good news is that many of our members who are being, in some literal ways, saved by that funding can write off their travel to CinemaCon as a normal business expense as part of that application and the funds they get back. So even better news and momentum for the likelihood of those members who really were hurting and struggling this year for being able to easily afford coming to Vegas in August with their flights and registration and hotel rooms. So good news there. And as I said, our biggest members are all planning on coming back. Our biggest reality this year is the likelihood that international travel will prevent, restrictions will prevent many attendees from overseas from attending. Now that news could get better, but we're obviously planning for the worst in that regard. So we'll probably, or not even probably, we'll reformat our programming on Monday, which used to be dedicated to International Day. We'll still sprinkle in some global topics because at the end of the day, we still are a global show. But this year will feel a little different from that standpoint, at least as sitting here today, we think it will. So I wanted to just get that out there. And then lastly, or at least what I'm thinking of now that's important for this call is we've been asked by several people what our protocols will be from a safety standpoint. And what I can tell you is right now, we've been closely monitoring for many months what's going on in Vegas and what their plans were. And we noticed a few months ago that they had opened up concerts in the Coliseum for full 100% sale. This was back a couple of months ago, actually, for Usher around 4th of July weekend. But then publicly, as many probably have seen, the news got even better from a restriction standpoint, obviously around the country, but specifically to Vegas by June 1st, or even now in many cases, they're fully open with no restrictions. So we knew there was no barrier now from us for putting on an event that we hope will be crowded again. But that said, we wanted to go above and beyond, and we will. And we're announcing, or actually have also made live on our website today, our own guidelines that will require proof of vaccination or proof of negative tests within 48 hours of attendees picking up their credentials for this year's show. and we'll closely monitor it, and we'll see if we need to implement anything else. But we just wanted everyone to know, as Mitch said, this show is not about us making a big profit. It's about bringing the industry together in a safe and fun way. And that's what we're going to do. And we're excited that we have a lot of momentum and a lot of support from our trade show companies and our sponsors and the studios and our members. And with that, I'll go ahead, Mitch.
So I'm going to just chime in on one chat question. Someone asked how the studio support impacts the trade show. So take this in the spirit of which it's being said. But if you have a Ferrari, and I don't want to pat us on the back, but I like to think that CinemaCon is a really high-end car that people have come to expect good things out of. Well, you need a good engine to drive that Ferrari. And for us, that's the studios, okay? What the studios bring to the Coliseum with their presentations and footage and screening and some of the talent, that's what brings exhibition to the show. That's why Mookie Greidinger is bringing his general managers to CinemaCon in August, okay? So that they can experience what the studios have coming out. So we get the studio support, it brings an exhibition, which means the exhibition, the exhibitors get to go to the trade show and see what you have on display, so that your clients, your customers, your purchasers, your buyers are there to talk to, okay? And I'll only overlap one thing that Matt Shapiro might be saying, or questions that I know he's been asked have been, well, will my clients be there? Because if I'm going to spend money to be in the trade show, I need to know that they're going to be there. So yes, we get the studios, we're going to get exhibition. We get exhibition, we're going to have your clients, we'll make your lives easier and Matt Shapiro's lives easier. So Matt Shapiro, that's your lead-in.
Thanks, Mitch. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. Also, thanks to Chris Mason and Coca-Cola for bringing us all together. We're really encouraged with how things have come along so far with the trade show. I think the updates that Matt Pollock provided, things will only continue to ramp up in the weeks ahead. I'm delighted to report that to date, we are just over 50% sold out on the trade show, having sold just north of 240 booths and 9 demonstration suites. And those suites are from tech companies including Christie, Cineonic, Dolby, GDC, and Sharp NEC. I'm going to share a link in the chat to the trade show page of the CinemaCon website. That just went through now. It's live and up to date, so you can take a look at the floor plan of available booth space and see our current exhibitor participant list. One thing we're introducing for 2021 is additional spacing between booths to allow for some social distancing. You'll notice on the floor plan in the link I provided that there's going to be 5 feet of space between each booth. GES, our show service provider, is going to install black curtain between each booth to fill in those gaps. And it's something they've been doing for a few of their other shows in recent months. And they've sent me pictures of it. I think it has like a pretty clean look to it and will offer a greater, sense of comfort for exhibitors and their guests. For those of you on the call who have already registered for booth space, you may have already received a confirmation letter from me this week. If not, one should be coming in the next few days. Many of you were gracious enough to transfer your payments, as Mitch alluded to, following the cancellation of the 2020 show. We're really grateful for your confidence in us. So after you receive that confirmation letter, you'll receive a billing statement that will note any transfer payments. There's a lot of moving pieces behind the scenes, so I'll just say in advance, thanks for your patience. Some questions I've been getting about the GES exhibitor kit. I'm in the process of finalizing the kit and the link for staff and guest badge registration. Those links will go live on the website in the next few weeks. So everything that I'm talking about, from the floor plan to the exhibitor list to the future locations for the exhibitor kit and badge registration, will be on that website that I linked to in the chat. For those on the call who haven't registered to exhibit, I'll invite you to spend some time on the website, review the show information and the floor plan. If you'd like to exhibit or just have a question, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Maybe Mitch or Matt can chime in quickly with my email address. One last thing I'll mention is, we're looking forward to welcoming back everyone to CinemaCon this August. One of our priorities remains making the show accessible for everyone. I've been working with a company named Tom Flies, who's become the official travel partner for CinemaCon. They created a custom booking page that can do a 15% discount on airfare traveling to Las Vegas. They work with all major airlines, and you can even collect points with your preferred airline through their booking page. The link is live on our website under the hotel and travel dropdown. We'll be promoting that a bit more on our social media channels and on our website in the weeks ahead. With that said, I'll thank Coke and the entire concession industry for your incredible support of CinemaCon, and I'll turn it back to Mitch or Chris for any questions or comments. I see Mitch.
I'm gonna go back to that question about the studio support. The intent of the question was, and it's a very delicate balance, and it's a delicate and difficult tightrope to walk. And that is when the studio presentations are scheduled and the trade show's going on. So what we try to do on Tuesday, the opening day, is once the opening ceremony ends at around 11:30, the trade show will have opened at 11 that day. We will not schedule our next presentation until around 4:15 or 4:30. So we have around 5 hours of unencumbered time. And then on Wednesday, while the trade show is open from approximately 9 to 5, we do realize that there is conflicting programming. But what we're hopeful is that some of the buyers will forego the studio presentations and take the time to go to the trade show. Also, on a non-pandemic year, we might have upwards of 15 to 1,700 trade show guests, names that are submitted by trade show exhibitors of people who want to come just to visit the trade show. So those people are not going to any of our scheduled events, and they will go to the trade show. And I know it's not the perfect answer. I know that. So it's something that we're always trying to be mindful and cognizant of. It's difficult, but something we know is out there and continues to a concern that's raised. So bear with us as we do our best on that.
Mitch, the backstory of CinemaCon was very fascinating. So I appreciated you providing that for us, because I think we always have the perception that everyone on this call obviously knows all that stuff, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of folks who are maybe a little bit newer to the game. So I really appreciated that. I've got a quick question from me. I know, I think based on circumstances, it sounds like the trade show booth, it's going pretty well. How about registrations? How are those looking, or what do you expect to see in the coming weeks?
So it's interesting from an organization and operational standpoint in putting the show together. Matt Shapiro is the one who's the busiest from the get-go. Actually, in a normal year, he'd start his booth sales very end of June into July. And come the late fall, the show would pretty much be sold out, okay? So when we reforecast our budget, and let me just put it all out there, is the August show gonna look different? Absolutely. Matt Pollock said it. We know that international travel is gonna be hampered a great deal. We know that right now we even need our Canadian friends north of the border to open up. And we're confident a lot of these restrictions will ease internationally over the coming weeks. However, we've budgeted down in attendance, okay? And from a trade show standpoint, we knew that equipment and concession people need to be getting money coming in from their sales to exhibitors for them to support the show. Again, it's a whole circle. If there's not exhibition, showing movies, selling tickets, making money, well, they're not buying seats, they're not selling popcorn and soda and candy. And my good friend, Mr. Techie Fingers, who I love, I'm looking forward to him coming back. That's not a plug. That's just one of my little favorites. We knew that we would not be selling out. And we've targeted around 70% of the trade show. Will we reach that? We're hopeful. We're hopeful that as we start getting news out about the show, as people who've been on the sidelines are saying, they're really serious, they're going ahead with this, maybe we should be there. And you know what? For those companies in the past who took 2 booths, if you take 1, that's great. And if you took 4 and you need to go to 2 or 6 to 4 to 2, just being there is going to be great. Again, the August show is about the message. It's about getting back together. It's about seeing good friends, difficult business partners, but partners nonetheless. So right now, registrations are sort of on par with where we've been in years past, but truthfully, these things don't really start flooding in until around less than two months to go before the show. Why? Because our schedule of events is online. People finally realize they need to, get off the couch and get this done. So we're expecting a good turnout. As Matt Pollock said, AMC, Regal, Cinemark, Harkins, Marcus, B&B, Cineplex, Bowtie, all of them have committed their support, okay? And they want to be there. I don't know if you know this woman, Sabrina Starr from Cineworld in Florida. I think she owns 2 or 3 theaters, maybe 40 screens. She wants to bring 20 people. So there's an excitement out there. And we're hoping to build on this and to deliver.
Great, thanks, Mitch. Barbara, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was
Yes,
just
just a little bit louder, Barbara.
Okay. Will the trade show be held on both levels this year?
Yes, we're currently booking space for both the Julius, formerly the Forum, and the Augustus ballrooms, as well as the trade show suites areas.
Thank you.
It's a great question. I have one for Matt Pollock, if you don't mind, Matt. You mentioned protocols. Is this a situation where you may have to plan for protocols and then they might drop off as the event gets closer, or will you adopt a certain set and stick with it?
I don't see us dropping off any. When I mention that we're going to keep check on things, it's more of if we have to enact more. So if, God forbid, the news gets worse and there's variants, that there's worse bad news on variants or things like that. But I can say with confidence, we're not going to change our policy on needing a negative test or a showing proof of vaccination. That's going to stay intact regardless from this point out. I think the only things that could change and what we're not ready to announce are recommendations for wearing masks and things like that, because we want to kind of see where things go the next month or 2, and those aren't the type of things we need to decide yet.
Okay, appreciate that. And then one for Matt Shapiro. Matt, one more time, what can the members of NAC do in the next few months to make your life a little easier?
No, everyone's been fantastic. I'm in the process right now of going through all my minutes of work behind. I was on, a pile of contracts that was rolling in over the past few months. So everyone's been really, great to work with as far as, getting in their questions to me. And you can call, text, email anytime, day or night, and I'll try to do everything I can to respond as timely as I can. But I will be continuing to push out updates, whether it's the exhibitor kit or badge registration. But if anyone has any questions, just keep it coming in.
And I would
Okay,
only add to
that's
that point on what else members could do. I would say that, like, be our champions and be your own champions. If you're taking a booth at the show, talk to people about it. Talk to our members about it and your customers about it. And you're making that investment to be at the show. And as Mitch said, we understand that investment goes far beyond just what you pay to the booth or us. Maximize that investment by promoting that you'll be at the show.
And you know what? To Matt's point, when I talked about the money that comes in that goes to NATO and helps fund it, NAC and ICTA are also our partners. So the more booths that we sell in the trade show, the more revenue goes to NAC. And yes, do I fully realize that the August show is going to be lesser than what it's been in the past? Absolutely. But we need to walk again before we run. And we know that in 8 months, we're going to be more back up to speed and there'll be more revenue coming in for NAC. So supporting CinemaCon supports NATO, supports NAC, supports the industry. So again, it's that full circle.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Mitch, because I've certainly appreciated over the past few years how closely we all get to work together, and it's been very enjoyable. So again, I'll maybe use that opportunity to say thank you to Mitch, Matt and Mason. And I apologize that my name doesn't start with an M, because that was unfortunate, but worked out great for you guys. But again, I want to thank you for being on. Okay, let's take a look at that.
There's a question on the chat from Matt Shapiro. And that question is, any info on serving food samples yet at the trade show?
Yeah,
Great
so
question.
Las Vegas will be fully reopening as of June 1st. And my understanding is that includes the full ability to do sampling at trade events and conventions in general. So I've put out my questions to our convention services provider at Caesars, just double checking and getting those sampling forms in so we can get those out to you guys. But the short answer is, my understanding for now is yes.
All right. Well, once again, gentlemen and Mason Spellman, thank you. I want to wrap up today's session just by, again, a few reminders. There's going to be a couple of these check-in chats coming up in June, and guys, maybe we can do this again before the show sometime if you feel the need. The door is certainly always open. CinemaCon registration is open. That's important. We've been announcing that for a while. So because you're so busy, right? But registration, we've been saying it for a couple of weeks, but I think today's huge message of confidence is CinemaCon registration is open, and it's going to be a great event, and it's going to be I think a milestone to get everybody back on track. And we certainly appreciate the extraordinary efforts that are going forth. As far as NAC, we're going to have some activities. Those are still taking shape, but I would say we're days away from saying what those are specifically. So I know everybody wants to make their travel plans, and we'll get information out there real soon. Like I said, probably days away. And then also our own event. And I'm sure we will experience a lot of what these gentlemen are experiencing as well. But we're going to be October 27th and 28th at the Hyatt Regency in Dallas. And we are looking forward to also getting on with the business of concessions. So appreciate everybody for joining today. I hope it was educational. I know it was for me. So with that being said, I'll just remind you that you've been watching the NAC Check-In Chat. It's a production of the National Association of Concessionaires, where food meets fun. Have a great week, everybody, and a great afternoon. Goodbye now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
So long. Thanks.